Hello, beautiful mamas. As a working mom, sometimes I can really feel scattered, unorganized, or simply just rushing from one thing to another and all over the place. Finding time for myself and finding my sanity can almost feel like an impossible dream. Can you relate? Well, this is why I have created my free Mama's Guide to Creating Balance and Harmony as my gift to you. This guide contains my top 10 tips to creating balance and harmony in your life, as well as 3 beautiful trackers to help you get onto your journey in a fun and simple way. I have found by incorporating daily self-care routines and practices in my life for as little as 5 minutes a day, I am feeling more grounded, centered, and calm. By me tapping into my best version through these practices, I am also a better mom, a better partner, and a better colleague. Well, really, just a better human being in all the ways. So, if this sounds like something that you would like to explore, click on the link in the show notes below and download your free guide today. We were all born with the innate power of knowing and wisdom within us. The challenge for many of us is that we were taught to seek answers externally instead of searching from within. And this is the reason why so many of us find ourselves going around in circles, searching for new ways, but could never find the way. The womanly way. It's not the way. It's not my way. But it is a pathway to support all of us returning back to self, reconnect with our inner wisdom through loving ourselves, knowing ourselves, and reconnecting with ourselves.
Tell me and be honest. Tell me should I've known.
So we can start to find our own way as modern day women. Are you interested? Well, sit back, relax, and welcome to this amazing journey. Hello. Welcome to this episode of The Womanly Way. I am your host, Lala Angela Wang. Welcome. So it's likely when you're listening to this episode, it would be coming close. It'll be 2024, so Happy New Year. But also, it'll be coming close to Valentine's Day. The reason I was inspired to create this episode was really because in the past couple of days, I had a couple of separate occasions where the topic of soulmate and how I attract a soulmate and how I might be able to help other people attract soulmate came up. Initially, I was like, oh, no, I'm not a soulmate coach. My specialty isn't about helping people find their soulmate. If anything, I'm probably better at helping people attract their babies. But that's besides the point. I've decided 2024 is going to be the year that I would be guided by spirit, that I surrender myself and be fully guided by spirit no matter what, because that's part of my human design. It's really aligned with my human design. And whenever I have more than one nudges, or whenever a topic around my life hops out more than once, that is when I am inspired to do something about it. So as a result of that, I thought I would create this podcast. And I really thought long and hard. To be honest, the version of me before I know Scott and the version of me when I met my ex-husband was in some aspect the same, in some aspect vastly different. But predominantly for me, it just felt so long ago, like a very, very, very distant memory. And I really have to put myself back into that place to remember and then be able to compare what the difference were. But what it really come down to for me is the behaviors are actually quite similar. I've always been quite a feminine person in relationships at the beginning. And I've always had that bossiness in me when I need to get things done. But it's the way that they get delivered, and it's the way that I deliver it, and it's the way that the energy that it gets delivered in, that's the biggest change. And it really comes down to, number one, me understanding my weaknesses and then working on it. And two, me understanding men, their language, their behavior, and being able to be in their brain before they even realize it. That's probably the biggest gift that I have learned. How I deal with men. You know, the old way is to boss them around, but the new way is slightly different. So I think there's a few components in there that is going to, I don't think I'll be able to cover them all in this one single episode. There might be a couple of different episodes coming up that will cover, you know, the other aspect of this. But today what I really want to focus on is this energy piece. Is this how it's same but different for me? And I need to, I guess what I needed to do is to first, going back to the beginning, right? And start there. So I was actually listening to this book that I've been reading, or listening to on Audible, called The Psychology of Money. And in it talked about how if you have a bad relationship with your dad, it's likely you have a bad relationship with all relationships, especially your intimate relationships, especially for women. Makes sense, right? And growing up, I didn't have the best relationship with my dad. A lot of the times, coming from the military family, my dad is the authority that we're all scared of. We all want to rebel of, but at the same time, that's just the facade. Ultimately, what I desired the most was for him to say that he was proud of me and get his approval. And I really have to have this caveat at the beginning and up front. I don't hate my dad. I don't say these things to hurt him. And it really is just my observation and based on what I have learned, understanding how behaviors have been developed through my development. And I'm going to talk about how I worked on changing those behaviors. So with that in the background, right? Growing up, I wasn't top of the class, but I was close. But the reality is I hate studying. I'm good at it, but I hate it. And sometimes I don't get it. And a lot of times the conflict between me and my dad is around why I don't get it, right? We either argue or I'll get a beating. I'll receive a beating from my dad. And sometimes it's because I'm daydreaming and during an exam, I'm careless and I get the most beating out of being careless. So throughout my whole life, on an academic perspective, I just want my dad to say that he's proud of me. And then came the internet, and then came puberty, and then came, all the hormones going crazy in my body. I started dating boys. I didn't know it back then. All I knew was, why do I keep dating losers? Why do I keep saying yes to relationships and end up dating these losers that end up breaking my heart? And it took me quite a few goes and quite a few disappointments. The upside is I'm a hopeless romantic. So, you knock me down, but I'll keep coming back again and again and again. And when I met my ex-husband, he was different from all the other guys I ever met. He's had 2 degrees. He had a master's degree in Australia. He's quite successful in what he does. And we just connected instantly. His friend introduced us, and we just connected instantly. We fell in love. He was going back to Taiwan, but he ended up changing his mind because he fell in love with me as well. And the next year decided to do a master's in construction project management here in Sydney. So we were going to do long distance. Universe tends to have a funny way of planning things. He ended up losing his job, being made redundant, so he came over to Australia, found a job, and we decided to stay in Australia. I'd love to say that the rest is history, but it wasn't. So we got married in 2012, and we were divorced in 2014. Or separated in 2014 and divorced in 2015. And that's when I started my personal development journey. And that's when I started to learn about our emotions, where they come from, and how our childhood shapes our inner landscape when it comes to emotions. And that's when I learned about my relationship with myself and my relationship with others. A lot of people, especially when I was younger, before personal development, I can come across as very domineering, very strong-headed, very capable. Sometimes still feminine. But I remember what my ex-husband said to me. He's like, it doesn't matter what I say to you. You want things done your way. So after a while, I just give up and do the things that you want. Things will be okay. We won't have to argue. And I remember in reply, I said, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who just listens to me. I want to have a discussion, a civilized discussion about all of the things, and you can share. You can share how you feel, and then we can share our thoughts and processes. But what I later realized was, because when I am communicating, quite often, if I am strong in having an idea and if I have thought things through, I could be quite a few steps ahead of him. So he'll be like, what about this? I'm like, yeah, I've already thought about that. It's not going to work because of this. Or what about that? Yeah, I also thought about that. It's also not going to work because of that. What about this then? No, that's also not going to work because this and that. So in the end, not that because he's slower than me, but it's just because the way that my brain works. For me to propose a solution, generally, I've already gone through quite a few ideas and scenarios. And so in my head back in those days was that he was just really suck at problem solving. And in his head, I was just this person that's very stubborn and want things done my way. But really, what I really wanted is for someone to take the lead at home, because with my day job, with my entire life, I've been taking the lead all along. And when I am home, I truly, truly desire my man to be a man and take the lead. Right? But quite often, because I believe that I have to do everything myself, that created a conflict. Right? But at the same time, I will stay in relationships because I want to have other people's approval. The same reason that when he proposed to me, I said yes because I didn't want to disappoint everybody. And this is what seeking approval can do to a woman when everything we do in our lives is about seeking approval. We could make some really silly decisions based on keeping everyone happy. And in my case, it was saying yes to my ex-husband when he proposed to me because I didn't want to ruin the night. I didn't want to ruin it for him, our anniversary night and the beautiful evening he's planned. And I didn't want to upset his mother, which was one of the other reasons why we were separated, because I actually felt like the third wheel in that relationship. You know, he's got a great relationship with his mom, but he does whatever his mom says. And she will live with us 6 months at a time. And so whenever there's a conflict, I'm the person at fault. And I was just not good enough for his mom. So then I try some more and I try some more and I try some more. And really, you know, there's a lot of other issues that was in that relationship that I didn't see coming. But because all I wanted to do is to have approval from his mom and from him and from my family as well. And also from the society and all my friends and family in general, because I was hitting 30, I said yes. And I thought I could fix it. I thought everything would work out, but it didn't. Fast track, 3 years down the track, 2018, when I met Scott, I actually just came out of a long-term relationship. But that's when it finally tweaked, right? It took several relationships after my divorce with my husband for me to finally, I am a bit thick when it comes to learning new things. So yeah, for me to finally tweak and understand what self-love is, what, you know, looking after myself first is, but also starting to understand what femininity really means to me, what being feminine really means to me. You know, beyond the makeup, beyond looking feminine, beyond the submissiveness, beyond wanting approval. And the shift, it was quite phenomenal. A lot of times we talk about feminine energy as that lean back energy. And I really think it is, right? But it is a hard thing to master. Because what does lean back actually means? It means surrender the control. It means you're not in control. The truth is you are in control in so many ways. But it's also allowing the other person to think that they're in control. Allowing the other person to think that, you know, that they have the power by empowering them. And that really is the main difference then and now, is that I used to disempower. Through my language, through the things I do, I used to disempower my ex-husband. Whereas when I met Scott, everything was about encouraging and empowering him to pursue me. And even in our relationships, I guess I started to understand what's in a guy's head, right? A standard, a typical joke that we joke about quite often. There's something that I read in Queen's Code. It's a book that we highly recommend to anyone who's looking for a man, the Queen's Code, that changed our relationship and also changed my life. It talked about how the husband just like never seems to wanted to take the garbage out, but when they sit down, finally they realize that there's a different expectation of when the bin is full. For a female, a bin is full when it's about to close the lid. For a guy, a bin is full perhaps is when it's like overflowing and literally can't put any more rubbish in that bin. So overflowing, if you can still keep it in the bin, like above the bin, it's not full. It's only when it's that full off the bin, it's full. Or there's also that nothing box story. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but go and Google nothing box. It talks about how when a guy is watching TV, they're actually in this thing called nothing box. I think it was said by a comedian in a show. So YouTube's probably the best place to Google it. And in this nothing box, there's absolutely nothing. It's that box where there's absolutely nothing. They are zoned out and allowing their brain to decompose. There's no such a thing as a nothing box in a female's head. Our brain is constantly going 100 miles a day, and it's likely it will never just have one thing that we're thinking of. It's always multiple things. And so a female would never understand this concept of nothing box and could keep nagging while he's watching TV, and we keep analyzing, and the conclusion often comes as, you don't love me anymore. But the truth is the guy is just in this place of nothingness, not processing anything, and therefore he might be in his resting bitch face, not having facial expression, not having a lot of reaction because his brain is actually stopped. And for a guy to restart their brain, it actually takes a while. Needs a warm-up period, okay? And that's why when they're in the nothing box and trying to distract them, get them out of the box and get them to help you problem solve, ain't gonna happen and ain't gonna end well if you don't give them this warm-up time. It's little things like that, and it's encouraging him to make decisions for us, encouraging him to rescue me. Guys love rescuing, right? You want to make them feel like they're the king of the mountain, King Kong or Tarzan. You want them to feel needed. You want them to feel like a superhero. And Scott often talk about this. He's like, us men, we're providers. If you allow us to provide for you, we'll love you. It's that simple. Allow them to provide for you instead of treating them as a child and having everything done for them to demonstrate how independent you are, right? And that was really the energy shift for me coming into a relationship, no longer treating a man like a counterpart. We're in this together. And it's not you and me, it's us, right? But at the same time, we're two separate entities. I remember having this conversation with Scott early on when we had our first fight. I said, my biggest fear is I'm doing all this personal development work and you are not. And one day I'm going to grow so fast and you won't be able to catch up. But guess what? He is a little bit slow at times, but he always catch up. Right? He always catch up because he wants to impress me. And if we can, let our man be in charge of impressing us, be the provider for us, be our hero, they will stick around. especially when you understand where they're coming from. If you understand a man, and Scott often say this to me, like, no one else understands me better than you, besides myself. Right? So no one else outside of himself understands him better than me. And sometimes I even understand him better than him at times. And that's really what men want. Someone who gets them, understands them, and allow them to be men. In terms of actions, I probably haven't really done it differently, but in terms of words, they're so different. The energy behind it is so much different compared to the conversations I had with my ex-husband and Scott. Right. I'm still a bossy pants. I will still tell him off. I can still be ahead of him when it comes to decision making. But he's more involved now. The man in my life is a lot more involved. He's, allow him to be opinionated, allow him to be cheeky, allow him to be him. Allow him to lead me and allowing him to make important decisions and trust him. If he's very wrong, I will correct him for sure, right? But I think it's not about being 100% one way or another. It's about finding that balance so your needs get met and his needs get met too. And what you'll find is it's actually not that hard to get a guy's needs met. They have far less needs than us. They just want to be loved, understood, and honored. And you know what? If you can give them those, they're more than willing to hear your needs, and they'll do whatever it takes to fulfill them for you as well. It's like a Chinese saying, the warrior will die for the person that knows them. Essentially, a soulmate. They understand them, they know them. A lady will present their best self for someone who will compliment them. And I think it goes beyond just looking beautiful, right? It's beauty in and out. And this describes so much of the masculine and feminine dynamic, the relationship dynamic between a man and a woman. If you understand your man, and that's what soulmate's really about. We talk about we want soulmate, but we only want it one way, right? You want to attract a soulmate, but are you acting as a soulmate for this man? Do you actually understand him in the deepest soul level? If you don't deserve to call yourself his soulmate, right? And a man will die for you if you know his soul. And a woman will work on themselves for you. If you cherish her and if you praise her and if you actually look at her as the most exquisite gift that God, Source, Universe has given you. So that's my 2 cents worth on, I guess, my own journey and how I have shifted and how I attract my soulmate. there's so much more that I can cover. This was just more of a spontaneous thought that I had today, and I just felt like I have to come on to talk about it. But I think in the upcoming weeks, once I process this whole thing, we'll probably have a more structured way of going through the different other aspects. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Do let me know if there are anything else that you would love to know on this topic about me finding my soulmate. Love you all so, so, so much. And I will see you, I will talk to you next time. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Womanly Way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast if you feel aligned to do so. Or check out our post-show discussions on my Instagram page @The Womanly Way. See you next time.